one of the first things that you need to understand is that every interaction that you have with the so-called government creates a bond. Okay, when you apply for a driver's license or a title for your car or your home, or you get a traffic ticket, or they bring a case against you, there is a bond created. Okay, and that bond, they take your money, your fiat money, which really is worthless, but they're putting that money in their pockets and they're sending it to Ukraine and laundering it through all these programs, and they're using it to in the war against you. Okay, so you got to understand how that stuff works. Every interaction with the government creates a bond. It's a financial transaction. When you go to court, it's a financial transaction. When they write you a traffic ticket, they're creating a debt. And the only way that you can settle that debt is you either pay cash for the ticket or go to jail. Um, you have to balance the ledger. Okay, so when you get a traffic ticket or a summons to go to court, you can, the only way you can settle that is either pay the money, or there's a certain way that you can sign that document and accept the debt and return for value. Okay, I'm going to do a video on how to do that next. But you autograph that thing in a specific way, and you use a postage stamp, and you use a notary, and you send it through the proper postal channels, and it puts the authority under the postmaster of the world. Okay, and it's unassailable the way that you do this. Okay, but that's the only way you can do it. Okay, if you deny the debt, you lose. Okay, because you haven't balanced the ledger. When the state's attorney decides to bring charges against you, they have to take out a surety in case they lose, which they never lose. If they do lose, it's just to give the appearance that you have a chance. You know, they do a percentage of that, I'm sure, just to show that, just to cover up how corrupt the judicial system is. Okay, so you know, when you whenever you interact with them, and there's, you know, everything to do with the government takes cash. It's a pay to play ordeal that you have to go through, you know, and that's how they're robbing America. That's how they're robbing us blind, because they take that money and they put it in their account, and they write a bond to put that in a ledger, and that's debt. Okay, so that's how it works, you know. So, you know, you can accept that. You can use postage stamps and autographs and colored ink, and sign it in such a way. With an autograph, you autograph it and write on it, you know, across a postage stamp, accept it and return for value. And that way you have balanced the ledger, you've balanced the book, and you've eliminated the debt. If you deny the debt, you lose. If you avoid it and try to dodge it, you lose. So, you know, I'm going to show you how to do it. I'm sure a lot of you have never seen a dollar stamp or a $5 stamp, $2 stamp, $10 stamp, you know, $50 stamp, $100 stamp. Okay, that's what a $1 looks like. $1 postage stamp. And I don't have any of the bigger ones. I've already used them. But you use those and these receipts from the post office, and when you do it the correct way, you become the postmaster, and you use their numbering, their system, to become the postmaster and the owner of that contract. So they don't want you to know this stuff, you know. One of the things I discovered, that the way that they are stealing the Social Security, okay, the Department of Health and Human Services, they throw Social Security, which is employment insurance. It's a pension plan, okay? But what they do is they put it in with all the programs like food stamps and charitable assistance, so it falls under charitable fiduciary responsibility, and they, you know, that allows them to get by the stricter fiduciary responsibilities of a life insurance or employment insurance pension plan. Okay, and you know, there's so many laws that they break the law because, you know, they're under the United States Code. There is no Constitution. They've done away with the Constitution a very long time ago. Okay, and they use the United States Code. The code is not law. Codes are not law. Statutes are not law. Okay. But they swish those words around, and they use them all the time in the wrong capacity, and get you confused. You know, you're taught in school to respect the authority in the reverse manner, okay? Because their authority comes through you. Without you, there is no them. But they've done away with all that stuff, you know. And most people are unaware of it because they've erased the history. They've erased all this stuff. You can hardly even find any of the original Constitution nowadays. The articles, you know, the common law articles are gone. You'll never find them again. So you've got to understand this stuff, you know, because that's how they're, you know, they've destroyed everything. They've taken all the money and they've destroyed our economy and they've controlled it, and it's just the way it is, you know. You've got to understand how it works. It's all fraud. It's all financial transactions and fraud. And they get you to give your implied consent because you don't know how things work. You don't know the difference between a signature and an autograph. Okay, a signature is giving authorization that you authorize that transaction. Okay, an autograph has no binding component to it whatsoever. You have to learn how this stuff works, you know. And I'm going to do a video next on postal power, on how to address these issues properly. And I don't know. It's, you watch the news cycles and everything, and they go through patterns. Right now, they're back on the fear pattern. Everybody just switched gears in the past few days and went right back to the full-on fear stuff, you know. So, and you don't know how much of it's real and how much of it's just bullshit. But it really doesn't matter, though, because whatever's going to happen is going to happen, and that's what you got to realize. You have to prepare yourself spiritually and make sure that you understand who God is and who the Messiah is, and have your affairs straight with them. Okay? It's not any Judeo-Christian nonsense. That's satanic. It's sad. It's really sad that so many people don't know how things work. You know, being an American begins with understanding why you can be an American or you can be a U.S. citizen, but you cannot be both. It's impossible. And understanding that is very important. Okay, so that's where the deception comes in. If you are a U.S. citizen, you're committed to the District of Columbia, Washington D.C., because the power and jurisdiction of Washington D.C. is the district. It rules over the United States, the individual states, through implied consent. Because you're not complaining about it, they get by with it. That's the bottom line. So, and most people, they've hidden this so well that most people don't even know that they can not consent to the government. But it's gotten more complicated and more complicated because the longer that they have control, the more entrenched that they become. And they write all these laws and stuff that protect them from you. So, they've taken every office within the corporation that used to protect we the people from the tyranny of government, and they've weaponized that and turned that against us. So, there you go. Stay tuned. Tune in very soon for my postal power video, because it's going to be very relevant. You're going to need that information if you want to change anything. It is well documented that a majority of the law profession is Jewish, and the medical profession and the financial occupations. And this is going to be quite disturbing. The video that I'm going to share here shows how they control the law, but I want to share with you another thing that they've done, that they've been doing for years, okay? The video that I'm going to share is how they keep the prisons full, okay? And what a lot of people don't understand is every time that you interact with the corporation, United States of America, there's a bond created. And there's a big bond created when you go into prison, for instance. So, and if you are in the military, this is the real big no. I mean, this is the criminal mind of the Jew at work right here, okay? So what they do is each soldier, I'm not sure of the amount now, but at the time that I did the study on this, it was $10 million insurance on each soldier. And every war we've fought has been for Israel. So they insure each soldier for $10 million, and that is the reason for perpetual, never-ending wars, because they make billions of dollars off of this. Because they insure the soldier, and if the soldier is killed, they take that insurance bond and hold on to it for a while. And, they give the family a hard time even paying for the burial of the son that they borrowed and got killed in their wars. And then, and they do the same with the prison bonds. They hold on to them because there's a rule, a law in the United States Code or in the commercial code that said on trading these bonds. So they have to hold on to them for a while before they can put them on the market and sell them as junk bonds. And they resell the debt. They resell the bond and they make millions of dollars off of prisoners, and they make millions of dollars off of the dead bodies of the American soldier. Your children are a commodity. Yeah, that's right. And with the privatization of prisons and privatizations of everything associated with the military and everything else, they've doubled and tripled and quadrupled their profits. You can guarantee that.
Hello, everybody. I'm trying very hard to not just be super angry. And I actually recorded this entire video earlier, and I was just so mad. I had to stop and take a break and think about it and come back. Because what I'm about to talk about, I don't even want to do a video on. I don't want to have to do this video. I wish this wasn't the reality. I actually just wish this wasn't what was happening, but it is. This is what is happening. While our aptly titled Department of War is over here making jokes about directed energy weapon dominance now, because, back in the day, if you'd have said they have directed energy weapons, people would have said, wow, you crazy conspiracy theorist, where's your tinfoil hat, you nutter? But now they're just openly making jokes about that. How they got directed energy weapons, they're trying to scale them up, and really just sending out on their official social media accounts the kind of propaganda you would expect to find on the walls in the background of the movie version of George Orwell's 1984. Just straight up. An America that's just swarming with drones in the skies, flying over the Statue of Liberty under constant surveillance by a standing army that's constantly at war, just like the Founding Fathers always intended. And our president just proposed a $1.5 trillion budget for the government's largest agency in fiscal year 2027.
This will allow us to build the, quote, dream military that we have long been entitled to, and more importantly, that will keep us safe and secure regardless of foe. Do we have any understanding, Todd, about what is the definition of a dream military and what that would include?
We don't.
And so to give you an idea of just how batshit insane that figure is, it's not just 50% higher than current levels, which were already nearing $1 trillion, and something that this nation hasn't seen since World War II, but more than any other country on Earth by far. Larger, way larger than Russia and China's budgets combined. And even Forbes is now saying this will make America weaker at this point. But of course, all the politicians who make kickbacks from these defense companies are commending Trump as if anyone has even explained why this agency, which has never once been able to pass an audit, even a single time ever, should be given an amount of money so absolutely cartoonish that it's nearly impossible to visualize. But hey, that's fine. It's not like they're closing U.S. airspace without notice because they've used directed energy weapons to shoot down party balloons or anything.
Is the airport totally closed? Apparently. The FAA's Notice to Airmen, or NOTAM, said El Paso had been designated National Defense Airspace, and the government may use deadly force against airborne aircraft that don't adhere to the order.
We're learning more detail about the flight stoppage at El Paso Airport. Reports suggest the Pentagon was using a high-energy laser to counter what was thought to be a drug cartel drone. Turns out it was a party balloon.
Oh. Actually, yeah, no, they did do that. As we transition into the darkest level of police state nightmare of any dystopian story you've ever read or watched in your entire life that make George Orwell's 1984 look like a Saturday morning cartoon, and I'm not even exaggerating right now, we can't even get our attorney general to answer basic questions that are so simple a child could understand them about the Epstein files and why we aren't even seeing a shred of accountability.
How many of Epstein's co-conspirators have you indicted? How many perpetrators are you even investigating?
First, you showed it. I find it.
How many have you indicted?
Excuse me. I'm going to answer the question.
Answer my question.
No, I'm going to answer the question the way I want to answer the question.
No,
Your
you're going to answer the
theatrics are
question the way I
ridiculous.
asked it.
I want to know, were there any underage girls at that party or at any party that Trump attended with Jeffrey Epstein?
This is so ridiculous, and that they are trying to deflect from all the great things Donald Trump has done.
This cover-up spans decades, and you are responsible for this portion of it.
And that's
now,
where the
I want to know, at
transparent-
what point did the FBI and the DOJ decide that Lex Wessner was not a co-conspirator? Because our Epstein Files Transparency Act requires you, please put it back on the screen, please, to release the internal decision about whether to prosecute him or not, and it's not in the files, and it's not in the files for any of these other men.
Time of the gentleman has expired.
May she answer?
And he's a hypocrite because he voted against the ban that we were talking about on deep fake AI porn. Only 2 people voted against it, and you were one of them, hypocrite. Donald Trump, the Dow right now is over. The Dow is over $50,000. I don't know why you're laughing. You're a great stock trader, as I hear, Raskin. The Dow is over 50,000 right now. The S&P at almost 7,000. And the NASDAQ smashing records. Americans' 401ks and retirement savings are booming. That's what we should be talking about. We should be talking about making Americans safe. We should be talking about, what does a Dow have to do with anything? That's what they just asked. Are you kidding?
And actually, if you didn't watch the hearings, this clip pretty much sums them up.
Fix you some of this new Mococo drink. All natural cocoa beans from the upper slopes of Mountain Nicaragua. No artificial sweeteners.
What the hell are you talking about? Who are you talking to? Can't use the stock market as a distraction from the redacted files because we're all broke. Do you not understand that? That's how bad of a lawyer the Attorney General is.
And the reason it's important to point out how the lowest common denominator of social moray defiling psychos in positions of power in this country are being shielded from any and all accountability is because I keep hearing people say that this same government is somehow going to uphold the law when it comes to other issues that we are dealing with, such as the mass of illegal immigration that was coming in here over the last several years. When it's incredibly obvious to anyone paying actual attention here for more than 5 seconds together that they have no intention of doing so. The same corrupt system is currently building a massive digital surveillance police state, which includes mega warehouse detention centers that are going to be put all over this country. And everywhere you look, this administration and the so-called but in name-only representatives in our Congress are taking financial kickbacks from the very for-profit private prisons that are going to be implementing these detention facilities. So everyone's making bank off of this. Everyone's grifting. I mean, this woman right here who went from this back in 2014.
And I'll fight to put human trafficking monsters where they belong, behind bars.
Pam Bondi, our Attorney General.
to this yesterday.
Have you apologized to President Trump?
Also failed to disclose her extensive conflicts of interest, including the fact that she was in recent years a DC lobbyist for tech firms like Amazon, but also for a company called Geo Group, which just so happens to be one of the largest for-profit private prison companies in the world.
CoreCivic and Geo Group, the two publicly traded companies that have come to dominate the private prison industry.
Private prison companies, mainly Geo Group and CoreCivic, are champing at the bit at their prospects for big profits in 2025.
It's no secret that corporate America values lining their shareholders' pockets over any other values. But what happens when the model of profit-seeking over all else gets wrapped up in an industry where the bottom line is dependent on millions of human bodies? In the towns we went to, private prisons had come to define the local economy, almost like a factory town in the past era.
Contrary to factory towns, those factories were producing things, right? Producing cars, etc. Here, they're not producing anything.
When we think about the operation of these jails, what folks in that community will say is, yeah, but there's good jobs.
Up to that point, I had never even heard of for-profit prisons. So I just needed a job, needed to work.
Geo Group was the first corporation whose PAC maxed out donations to Trump's campaign, donating millions to the president and to members of our Congress. And when you know it, but last summer, Geo Group not only got their $4 million EPA lawsuit quashed, where they were charged with some 1,100 violations for failing to protect workers at one of their California immigration facilities from a known toxic disinfectant that they were spraying all over the place, but they've also now received over $1 billion and counting in government contracts to implement these detention facilities for this massive, sweeping immigration situation that's happening in our country now. Go ahead and ask yourself why it is that it's totally legal somehow for the same corporations that stand to benefit in federal contracts to spend millions of dollars on political contributions to the president and to our representatives. Like, how is that even legal? Go ahead and ask yourself. I have no idea. For those with short memories, you might recall that it wasn't always called the Geo Group, just by the way. It rebranded in 2003 after significant scandals. It used to be called Wackenhut, as in a subsidiary of that Wackenhut. The very Wackenhut that Spy magazine in 1992 referred to on its cover as the CIA's CIA, or the Shadow CIA. The one that's been written about in academic journals for doing things like engaging in a scheme to kidnap a U.S. ambassador to El Salvador and then blame it on leftist organizations in a classic black flag operation. Yeah, that Wackenhut. Does that ring any bells? It might, considering how many times they were accused of human rights abuses, the fact that in the year 2000, the Department of Justice actually sued Wackenhut, alleging excessive abuse and mistreatment of juveniles, no less. There were all kind of scandals, bribery, lawsuits, staff being accused of sexual assault. But somehow we're supposed to believe they just rebranded, slap a new name on there, new logo. It's all good now. I'm sure it'll all work out really well to give them billions of dollars now. I'm sure it's all fine.
Most of the reporting I've seen on these detention centers are that people are getting education and healthcare. So I, of course...
Well, look, I mean...
So it's 2026, and like every other aspect of the eldritch abomination from the deep that is our corrupt system, ICE is now the highest funded U.S. law enforcement agency, with a budget that is larger than the annual budget of all other federal law enforcement agencies combined. And they've been given special hiring authority that allows them to bypass the usual rigorous hiring procedures for federal employees, which, as you can imagine, will surely end well, right? Like, they're definitely going to get the creme de la creme of people to run around masked with guns and operate with impunity.
What happens when ICE hires agents with minimal screening, then sends them into the streets masked and armed?
I handed in my resume, which was, I did a skills-based resume. I'm a veteran. I served 2 tours in Afghanistan. So on the surface, the resume looked pretty good. had a very brief interview, took all of 6 minutes. They didn't ask very many questions. And then I left, assuming I would never hear back, because I'm a very Googleable person. I have an unusual name. I'm the only Laura Jadid on the internet. And I make no secret of how I feel about ICE and Trump and all of it. So I was not expecting several days later to receive a tentative offer. I missed it in my inbox and it sunk to the bottom, which means that I never filled out the paperwork they requested. I never accepted the tentative offer. I never filled out my background check paperwork. I never signed the affidavit saying I'd committed no domestic violence crimes, none of it. A few weeks later, I got a message from LabCorp saying that ICE wanted me to do a drug test, and I went ahead and did that. I was pretty sure I wouldn't pass. I'd partaken in legal cannabis 6 days before the test, but why not waste some of their money, right? And then 9 days after that, I decided I wanted to, I was curious, had they processed the drug test yet? So I logged onto the ICE hiring portal, and what I found was that not only did the drug test not seem to be relevant, I was listed as having joined ICE as of 3 days earlier. I had listed that I had accepted the offer. They had offered me a final position as a deportation officer. My background check was listed as completed 3 days in the future from when I was looking at it. So it seems like the answer to the question, who are they hiring, is they don't know.
Wow.
Which is a situation that is now getting so bad, it's led even the Brookings Institution to write that they have outpaced accountability. That's a direct quote, outpaced accountability, with reports of unchecked misconduct, including the use of excessive force, illegal detentions, and sexual assault.
The precedent here is very simple. You have a federal law enforcement official engaging in federal law enforcement action. That's a federal issue. That guy is protected by absolute immunity. He was doing his job.
While you have mainstream media outlets like Fox News quick to jump on the bandwagon of dramatic reports like this one, where they claimed an ICE officer who opened fire was ambushed with a shovel and a broom by 3 illegal immigrants during a traffic stop, because, yeah, just by the way, ICE is now doing traffic stops.
Federal agent ambushed and beaten in Minneapolis and then shot one of the attackers in the leg. DHS says the attack happened while the Immigration and Customs Enforcement officer was arresting an illegal immigrant and was forced to defend his life. That makes 2 incidents in 1 week, requiring action deemed by the federal government as justified.
What they weren't quick to report on, that case just got dismissed by the government due to, and I quote, newly discovered evidence in this matter is materially inconsistent with the allegations in the complaint affidavit. Materially inconsistent, of course, being a lovely euphemism for it was all made up. But do you think Fox News is going to report on the government dropping the case with the same breathless outrage with which they reported on the false allegations to begin with? Probably not.
I've learned that Homeland Security officials have come to FEMA staff and told them to limit the use of the word ICE in their public messaging and social media posts when talking about the storm. What they are worried about here is that by posting something like, watch out for the ICE, that it's going to become an opportunity for a meme.
ICE, which is now increasingly being referred to by analysts and critics as the president's personal roving paramilitary force, has apparently been instructed by a secretive internal DHS memo that it's totally okay to enter people's homes without a judicial warrant in direct violation of the Fourth Amendment of our Bill of Rights, as 2 whistleblowers came forward to disclose last month.
This just into our newsroom in the last half hour. According to a memo from the acting ICE director obtained by the Associated Press, immigration officers can enter homes without a judicial warrant.
They claim it's okay to simply use what is called an administrative warrant, which, just to be clear, is nothing more than an internal DHS form signed off on by an immigration officer, so not a judge. So despite the use of the phrase administrative warrant, this form is just a form. It's not actually a court-ordered warrant, but a bureaucratic semantics argument that they're using to skirt the Bill of Rights and the Fourth Amendment.
Imagine if we had to go through the process of getting a judicial warrant.
And that's why you now have stories like this one, where ICE agents showed up to the house of a U.S. citizen, masks on and guns drawn, and forced their way into his home and pointed guns at his family, yelling and screaming at them. They didn't show a warrant, they just broke down his door.
Just take me out there without any clothes on, unless only the blanket, only my grandson's blanket, cover me, take me out there to the car. They didn't say anything. that what's wrong. They tried to take a photo of me, but I didn't want to, right?
This person's been a U.S. citizen for decades now. They basically showed up into his house with guns drawn, broke his door down. He tried to get his identification, and they told him they didn't want to see it. And as his 4-year-old grandson watched and cried, he was led outside in handcuffs in his underwear with nothing more than a blanket wrapped around his shoulders in Minnesota in the winter. Then they drove him out to, quote, the middle of nowhere, where they made him get out of the car in the frigid weather to photograph him. And then he was asked for his ID, to which, of course, he said, I'm in my underwear and you didn't let me get it. Eventually, the agents realized, oopsie, that's a U.S. citizen with no criminal record who did nothing wrong. And after a few hours, they brought him back to his house, made him show his ID, and then they left without so much as an apology for completely violating his rights, violating the Fourth Amendment, bursting into his house with guns, and scaring and traumatizing his family, including his 4-year-old grandson. And if it happened to him, it can happen to you. It can happen to anybody. Oopsie, wrong house. You know, the whole thing, when you read it, it just sounds like the opening scene of Terry Gilliam's Brazil.
Buttle, Archibald, residing at 412 North Tower, Shangri-La Towers, has been invited to assist the Ministry of Information with certain inquiries. Sign here, please. That is your receipt for your husband.
Are you okay?
We're Department of Works.
Nothing to worry about.
It's Tuttle downstairs who can worry, eh?
Tuttle? His name's Buttle. There must be some mistake.
That was a movie and supposedly a parody of a potential Orwellian future, which is sad because now we're living in that parody. We're living in that Orwellian future.
How much time would that take? We don't have enough judges. We don't have enough time.
The whole reason we have a separation of powers government is so one branch can put a neutral check on another branch to maintain the balance of powers so that all the power does not get concentrated in one branch that's just acting as if it is all three branches instead of the branch that it is limited to the powers that it's supposed to have by the Constitution. So the whole reason you have a judicial warrant is so that the agency that's issuing the warrant is not also the same agency signing off on it and executing it. And, you know, general warrants were one of the things that contributed to the American Revolution, just by the way. I know they don't teach a lot of the real history of what happened there in schools, but one of the problems was exactly that. That exact thing. On the long train of abuses and usurpations that's listed in the Declaration of Independence, you actually have sending hither swarms of officers to harass our people. That's one of the things on the list. In fact, actually, I could go through that entire list of things and I could add multiple things from that list that are happening right now in our country right now. There's several things on there that are occurring at this time. Of course, somebody said, you know, this government is the one the founders warned us about. And I would argue, no, this one's worse because they're using directed energy weapons to shoot down party balloons and then shutting down airspace over it. But that's the thing. You have people who still support this. They're supporting this level of police state. As if somehow amazingly turning our country into a digital gulag where government agents don't respect the Bill of Rights at all, even remotely, in any way whatsoever, is somehow going to save America. No, it's so illogical and makes no sense at all. They're destroying what's left of America right now. That is what this is. That's what we're living in right now. That's what they're doing. They're destroying what's left of it. That's one of the only things that's left that actually makes this country worth a damn. And they are trampling all over it in the most blatant of ways possible. Every time I've ever complained on this channel about unconstitutional behavior out of this government, it has never been to the level of this. This is so, so bad and so dangerous to every single one of us here.
President deserves a big A for restoring order at the border.
DHS touting the lowest number of illegal border crossings since 1970.
But Trump deserves a D for the brutality of his deportation campaign.
Agents wait 14 seconds, then blow out the bedroom window.
I do have issues with maybe the way that he has conducted the attempts at deportations.
Seems needlessly cruel.
If you care at all about liberty or freedom or the Bill of Rights or your inherent rights or the rights of your family and friends, if you care about any of that stuff at all, and to prove what I'm saying, I would like to read to you now this court transcript dated February 3rd out of a U.S. District Court in Minnesota. This really brings it home what is actually happening if you read this document. And I will put the links to these court documents in a pinned comment below so that you can go read the whole thing if you want. It's actually not that long of a read. So this is a show cause hearing that the judge called, and it starts off with, it concerns the compliance with court orders, not policy, just compliance, nothing else. The judge says, I've had so many issues with non-compliance in just the past week that I had to call this hearing. So the judge says, first of all, I just have some general comments. I hope everybody here agrees and acknowledges that a court order is not advisory. It's not conditional. It is not something that any agency can treat as optional while it decides how or whether to comply with the court order. The authority exercised by the court is derived from Article 3 of the Constitution and is not by dint of the parties' agreement with the ruling itself. That authority under Article 3 only has meaning if the court orders are obeyed, adhered to promptly, fully, and in good faith. That obligation matters most where liberty is at stake. Detention without lawful authority is not just a technical defect, it's a constitutional injury that unfairly falls on the heads of those who have done nothing wrong to justify it. The individuals affected are people. The overwhelming majority of the hundreds seen by this court have been found to be lawfully present as of now in the country. And I think I'm going to repeat that. I'm going to repeat that sentence. The overwhelming majority of the hundreds seen by this court have been found to be lawfully present as of now in the country. So they're detaining people who are here lawfully. That's not illegal immigrants. Okay? All the stuff that Fox News and these other Newsmax and whatever about all the illegal immigrants, how come, if that's the case, the overwhelming majority of what's being seen in this U.S. District Court are people who are here lawfully? Explain it. Someone should explain it, because that's not what's supposed to be happening, is it? So then the judge says when a release order is not followed, the result is not just delay. In some instances, it is the continued detention of a person the Constitution does not permit the government to hold and who should have been left alone. That is, not arrested in the first place. You all, that's the respondents, represent the United States, and that carries obligations with it. The DOJ, the DHS, and ICE are not above the law. Well, they're not supposed to be. They do wield extraordinary power, and that power has to exist within constitutional limits. And I would add, it has to exist within constitutional limits because the Constitution is the only thing that gives any of this government any authority whatsoever, although DHS is not a constitutional agency to begin with, is it? No. But any power and authority this government gets has to derive from the Constitution to be legitimate. Otherwise, they don't have legitimate authority. So if they're not going to follow the Bill of Rights and the Constitution, their authority is illegitimate. That is what that is. That's the whole way this country was founded. The whole way this country began was by defining where legitimate authority comes from and where it does not. That is why there's a long train of abuses in the Declaration of Independence and a huge explanation as to how legitimate authority is derived and why governments are instituted among men in the first place. So if they're not going to follow the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, then they're a completely illegitimate power that's just wielding illegitimate authority over everybody. That's terrifying. Especially in an age where they're bragging openly about their directed energy weapons, okay? And building a massive set of detainment camps all over this country. When court orders are not followed, the judge says, it's not just the court's authority that's at issue, it is the rights of individuals in custody and the integrity of the constitutional system itself. So Then the judge says we're going to go on and respond to some of these things. Judge says if the government undertakes an enforcement operation of this scale, one that results in the detention of large numbers of people, including individuals who are lawfully present in the United States, then the government assumes a corresponding obligation to ensure that each detention complies with the Constitution and with court orders governing their release. Volume, that is the volume of cases and matters, is not a justification for diluting constitutional rights, and it never can be. It heightens the need for care. Having what you feel are too many detainees, too many cases, too many deadlines, and not enough infrastructure to keep up with it all is not a defense for continued detention of people that weren't supposed to be arrested in the first place. If anything, it ought to be a warning sign. But what you cannot do, the judge says, is to detain first and then sort out the lawful authority of that detention later. Continued detention is not lawful just because compliance with release orders is administratively difficult or because an operation is expanded beyond the government's capacity to execute it lawfully. So Ms. Voss and Ms. Lee are the lawyers for the government. The judge says, so Ms. Voss, I don't take it at all that it's the government's position that Operation Metro Surge has outpaced the government's ability to lawfully process detentions and comply with judicial oversight. That's not the government's position, is it? And Ms. Voss says, no, certainly not, Your Honor. And the judge says, right. And does the DOJ feel that just because it has or needs resources to process all of the claims and comply with court orders, that that's a reason for the court to be relaxing constitutional requirements? And Ms. Voss says, no, certainly not, Your Honor. If you don't comply with the court's orders, you've essentially painted the court into a corner. Because what are we supposed to do? We're here to determine what the law is and sort out whether the detentions were lawful or not and issue orders for release if we find the detentions were not lawful and to oversee that that gets executed. And in our case, the court has hundreds of these cases of noncompliance at this point. Hundreds of cases of noncompliance where they're detaining people that shouldn't have been detained. They've been ordered to release those people and they're not doing it. So they go back and forth on that, and I just want to get into this lawyer, Miss Lee. She's trying to explain how she's new, and she's been working there only a month, and she says it's been more than 4 weeks, and she just got her card into the DOJ system yesterday. So they're not even giving her access to the DOJ system. This is the lawyer that's representing the government. She says, so in January 5th, she started with the agency. And to be honest, we have no guidance or direction on what we need to do. That is what the lawyer for the government just said. She's gotten no guidance or direction on what she needs to do. She said she just showed up and they threw her in there. I mean, a teenager working at Wendy's is getting more orientation on how to make a cheeseburger than the lawyers for the government are getting in this immigration situation that's unfolding in our country.
But first of all, you got to check your stuff, like a grill that's set at 250 with the meat and cheese that's ready to go. A towel to keep your station looking cool. But most of all, you got to have your tool.
Do you see a problem there? I'm not sure how anybody thinks that this government is going to fix its own mess in this situation where they're not even giving guidance to their own lawyers on how to deal with what's happening. They're just hiring people basically in name only and just throwing them in there. They're not telling them what to do or giving them even access to the government's own systems so they can do their jobs. They're getting no orientation on how to do anything, no guidance, nothing. But they're supposedly going to fix this problem. Yeah, I somehow doubt that. Down here, she's the lawyers, so she's talking about what her day is like, where she's working these crazy 20 hours a day and everything. And she gets down there and still says she's still having trouble even just accessing her email, her DOJ email, this lawyer. So she's having trouble even just getting in her email to do her job. That's the level. All right. So the judge says, are you telling the court that you were brought in like a brand new, shiny new penny into this role and received no proper orientation or training on what you were supposed to do? And Miss Lee says, I have to say yes to that question, Your Honor. So again, teenagers working at McDonald's are getting more orientation on how to mop a floor and make French fries than the lawyers that the government has hired are getting on how to do their jobs. And you still have people out here saying, oh, they're going to fix this illegal immigration situation. Are you kidding? Are you kidding? This is ridiculous.
And you'll get a patty that's out of sight. Press out the corners nice and wide, at least half an inch on both sides.
Basically, the argument that's happening at this point is that the judge is saying, look, I order you to release someone and I'm not hearing back from anyone. I'm not hearing back on that any of my orders are being followed or anyone's doing anything that this court is ordering at all. So here's a particular situation where the judge says, here's a petitioner I refer to as Oscar, was a petitioner who had no criminal history that warranted mandatory custody, apprehended by ICE on January 10th, 2026. On January 15th, so that's 5 days later, there was an order from this court that he be released and that the respondent, which is the government, shall confirm the date, time, and location of the petitioner's release within 48 hours of the court order on January 15th. So then they go back and forth on how, like, this day happened and the 19th is happening and the 20th is happening, and the court is still not hearing back from the government that they've let this guy go, right? Then the judge says, we learned that on the 20th, when the release was supposed to have taken place finally, that there still was no release. Instead, the petitioner was currently en route to Albuquerque, New Mexico. So not only are they detaining people that never should have been detained in the first place and not releasing them when the court orders them to do so, but now they're just flying them around the country and no one even knows where they are. And originally they said the guy was in El Paso. So first they said he was in El Paso. Now they find out he's in Albuquerque. They don't even know where this guy is. So they're detaining people that never should have been arrested in the first place. And they're flying them all over the country and no one even knows where they are because no one's keeping track of what's going on because DOJ lawyers can't even get into their email and have no guidance or orientation on how to do their jobs. So then, by the 24th of January, there's still no confirmation they've released this guy. Then on the 26th of January, the court is still trying to figure out, are they going to release him finally? Where even is he? What is even going on? By the 27th, the court finally hears from Miss Lee, I want to inform the court I've received confirmation regarding petitioner's itinerary that he will be transported back to Minnesota. So this person's been arrested on the 10th. Ordered to be released on the 15th. It's the 27th. They're just now getting around to we're going to bring him back. They never should have let him go. He shouldn't be flying around the country to first. But where are they even taking him? What are they even doing? There's no orders on any of this. They're just doing whatever. So now he's supposed to come back on a commercial flight. And by the way, all these flights are being paid for by taxpayers too. I mean, that's the thing. You think you're going to save money on solving this problem. They're spending billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars on this problem. So now they're trying to fly him back, and then they tell the judge on the 28th that he's finally going to be released. But then, on the 28th, they're asking for an extension to release him. They decide there's a security risk delaying him getting back somehow. If this was you or your loved one or your friend, can you imagine? You weren't supposed to be arrested in the first place. Weeks are going by. The government is flying you to detention centers and all around the country, and no one's keeping track of you're lost in some system that's not even following any protocol. That's what's going on. It's so Brazil. This is such a Terry Gilliam movie. The judge is saying you're flying people out of Minnesota and taking 13 days to return them back to the state when they've been found to be unlawfully detained in the first place. What do you think about that, lawyer for the government? And Miss Lee says, Your Honor, I did ask the same question too. I have not got the answer. So the judge just moves on because what else can you do at that point? That's a level. It's insane. This doesn't even resemble a workable system for any of this that makes any kind of damn sense at all. It just doesn't. And the government's lawyer says, I have to go back to pulling teeth to get anything fixed. It took a really long time. Blah, blah, blah. Excuses, excuses, excuses. And then this lawyer tells the judge straight up, sometimes I wish you would just hold me in contempt, Your Honor, so that I can have a full 24 hours of sleep. And she says, I'm here with you, Your Honor. What do you want me to do? The system sucks. This job sucks. So that's the lawyer for the government saying the job sucks and the system sucks. And the whole thing is terrible. And she goes on to say, I'm not meant for this job. And to be honest, I did put in for a request to be transferred, but no one's willing to come here and stand in front of you to explain or help improve this system. They won't let her quit. She's trying to quit this job. She hates it. So that's going on. I mean, can you imagine seeing that in an episode of Columbo or something, or Matlock? Can you imagine seeing the lawyer for the government in a Matlock case just being like, I fucking hate this job. It sucks, Your Honor. It's a terrible piece of shit. I really wish I could quit. They won't let me leave. I'm trapped in a horrible nightmare. I mean, that's basically what this sounds like when you read it. The judge goes on to say, for example, if we say release this person immediately, we learn that having transported him to El Paso or New Mexico or whatever, you're not bringing him back. Then we learn that someone's just being put out on the street with just the clothes on their backs, and they have to figure out how to get back here when they should have not been transferred out of here in the first place. But we can't have them being released when it's minus 14 degrees outside. And that's what they're doing. They're just dropping people on the side of the road. And so once that's addressed, then we learn after they've been released that now conditions have been imposed on their release that were not ordered by the court. That somebody who shouldn't have been arrested in the first place is now being told, sure, you'll be released if you wear an ankle monitor. So they're putting ankle monitors on people now, which the court didn't order because the person was unlawfully detained in the first place. The judge goes on to finally say, we take no great pleasure as a court in compiling a list of some 90 or so cases of violations of court orders for release, let alone the 10 or so that I had just last week. So that's 90 people within a matter of weeks that have been unlawfully detained by this government. They never should have been detained in the first place, and they're not releasing them when the court is ordering to have them be released. Then you get down here and you have a lawyer for the plaintiffs. This lawyer says, first, I'd just like to revisit your question earlier of whether the unitary executive behavior in Operation Metro Surge has outpaced the system's capacity to ensure the Constitution is being complied with. And this is abundantly clear that the answer is yes. The lawyer says there are problems with supervision and training that have resulted in immense violence in our communities, which of course would happen since ICE is just hiring whoever. Again, they have special hiring authority that allows them to bypass any kind of rigorous hiring process.
Luckily, my boys at ICE don't mind. They're in it for the love of the game. And how did I find them? By running ads like this. Do you need a job now? Yeah. Are you a big tough guy? Yeah. Tough enough for the army or police? No. But do you take supplements that you bought at a gas station? Daily. Do you like to use zip ties because people in your life don't trust you with keys? You know it. Then buckle up and slap on some Oakley's, big boy. Welcome to ICE. Does that answer your question?
No, not even a little bit.
It's pulling teeth for the counsel of the government to get her own client, that's the government, to fix these constitutional violations. It should not be pulling teeth to get compliance from the government with the Constitution is the most basic sentence that anyone could ever say. And yet here we are. It's being said in this court document by a lawyer in 2026. Detain first, find authority later is exactly their strategy, and we've seen this from all of our cases where there's no warrant, no probable cause, and most of the clients, they report that the government, upon detaining them, have no idea who they are. They're pulled over for how they look, or for where they are, or any number of things that don't amount to probable cause under the U.S. Constitution. And then she says she really hopes that the judge reads one of her client's declarations because it articulates just how horrific this experience is for you to be detained when you didn't do anything wrong illegally and then just kept there and not knowing if you're ever going to get out or not. But his affidavit, she says, just really shows what it's like to experience that, and in ways that were personally for me sickening to read as his attorney. That he was without food, he was without clean clothes, he was subject to physical danger, both through reckless driving of ICE agents transporting him from one location to another, to watching people screaming in pain with medical neglect. That the conditions of his confinement included eating food that he conflated with dog food, that people are being treated less than human, and that all of this was happening while he had a court order for his release because he was unlawfully detained. Meanwhile, he's sleeping on the floor if he gets any sleep at all. He's being lied to. He's being denied access to phone calls to his loved ones and his attorneys. I would encourage Your Honor to read this declaration and defer to the court if you would like me to submit it formally in his case. And then there's a human rights declaration for the next case. But if you scroll down, she says we shouldn't need a specific court order to ask the DOJ not to be putting people's lives in danger. But I can't tell you how many clients I've had where I've had to go find them. They were left on the side of the road with no coat, no phone, no wallet, no hat. They're wearing Crocs or whatever they got pulled out of their house or their car with, whatever that was, and it's 0 degrees outside. We shouldn't need a court order saying don't put someone's life in danger. They're just dumping people. When they finally do release someone that shouldn't have been detained in the first place, they're just dumping them on the side of the road in freezing temperatures in the winter in Minnesota. That's what they're doing. And the lawyer says, but here we are, and we need court orders or orders to show cause just to show compliance with court orders that shouldn't have had to be issued in the first place. I think this would be a different story if these habeas petitions were frivolous, but we're filing so many of them because there are just so many people now who are being detained without any semblance of a lawful basis. So that is the end of the hearing, but that is what is going on. There are so many people now. They're having to file so many habeas corpus petitions. You remember habeas corpus, right? It's the thing that Kristi Noem, DHS Barbie over there, has literally no idea what it is.
Secretary Noem, what is habeas corpus?
Well, habeas corpus is a constitutional right that the president has to be able to remove people from this country and suspend their right to.
Let me stop you, ma'am. Habeas corpus, excuse me, that's incorrect.
President Lincoln used it.
Excuse me. Habeas corpus is the legal principle that requires that the government provide a public reason for detaining and imprisoning people. If not for that protection, the government could simply arrest people, including American citizens, and hold them indefinitely for no reason.
Yeah, that right there. They're having to file so many petitions for that. Okay? Because there's just so many people now who are being detained without any semblance of a lawful basis.
If you go online and watch this video, you will hear the agent tell Ramon Minera that he is being detained because he has an accent.
Do you have documentation? I do have my documentation. Can you present it to me, Why please? Are you asking me for my paperwork? Because of your accent. You have an accent too. Where were you born, sir? Where were you born at? Put your hands behind your back.
Okay, Ramon Minera is a U.S. citizen. Guess what? There are a lot of U.S. citizens who have accents.
And you might say to yourself, this is just a partisan issue. Certainly all of these judges were put there by Obama and Biden, right? But you'd be wrong, okay? Here's another one that came out from a judge, Patrick Schlitz. He was a George W. Bush appointee from 2006. And he's saying right here, there are 96 court orders that ICE has violated on 74 cases. And then he writes, the extent of ICE's noncompliance is almost certainly substantially understated. It's a list that should give anyone pause, no matter his or her political beliefs, who cares about the rule of law, as ICE has likely violated more court orders in January 2026 than some federal agencies have violated in their entire existence. Even Trump-appointed judges are saying this now. While I was recording this, yet another transcript came out of yet another U.S. District Court judge in Minnesota, Judge Nancy Brazel, who's a Trump appointee. And she wrote this. In recent weeks, ICE has isolated thousands of people, most of them detained at the Bishop Henry Whipple Federal Building, from their attorneys. Plaintiffs who are non-citizen detainees and a nonprofit that represents them have presented substantial specific evidence detailing alleged violations of the United States Constitution in holding these people. Defendants, that's the government, may not properly choose a facility that is unfit for a particular purpose and then use the inadequacies of that facility as a justification to deprive detainees of meaningful, confidential access to their legal counsel to the extent demanded by the Constitution. The judge says it appears that in planning for Operation Metro Surge, the government failed to plan for the constitutional rights of its civil detainees. The government suggests, with minimal explanation and even less evidence, that doing so would result in, quote, chaos. The Constitution does not permit the government to arrest thousands of individuals and then completely disregard their constitutional rights because it would be too challenging to honor those rights. Why? Because this is America. If you're not going to uphold the Constitution, those rights apply to those people. When people come over here on tourism, when they come over here on visas, and yes, even when they're here illegally. And I would suggest to you that the reason that this was done in this way is so they could do this.
Imagine if we had to go through the process of getting a judicial warrant. How much time would that take? We don't have enough judges. We don't have enough time. It would take decades probably to do that.
Just like that lawyer said, they're overwhelming the system. In fact, this whole thing reads like a DDoS attack on our system in order to bring it down on purpose by design. Do you know what a DDoS? If you don't know what a DDoS attack is, it's a distributed denial of service attack that's a malicious attempt to disrupt internet traffic of a targeted server, service, or network by overwhelming it with a flood of internet traffic from multiple compromised malware sources. So it uses botnets or zombie computers to exhaust resources, making everything slow and inaccessible, causing downtime, stealing data. It's just a massive flood of zombie traffic to shut a system down. That is what this looks like, what they're doing. Because they're just rounding people up and asking questions later and flooding the system with a bunch of cases of people who should never have been detained in the first place, and then they're not complying with the court when they're told to release those people.
What's your name?
Omar, but I'm a U.S. citizen.
You're a U.S. citizen?
Yes, I am.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you.
Look, it is to the point that Reuters just got done reporting last week that hundreds of judges from around the country have now ruled more than 4,400 times since October that this administration is detaining people unlawfully. Yet the administration just continues to jail people indefinitely. If it's so simple, we just need to get rid of people who are here illegally. Why are they detaining and locking up people that should not have been detained to begin with? Like, you can't even make this up, dude. As I was recording this, an ICE whistleblower came out, a former attorney who worked for ICE for 4.5 years, who did training for new ICE officers, testified at a hearing before Congress about how they have cut the training program for new ICE officers in half, and they are teaching them directly to violate the Constitution.
I swore an oath to uphold the Constitution when I joined ICE on August 1st, 2021, as an assistant chief counsel. I followed that oath for 4.5 years, working side by side with ICE officers. And I followed it when I resigned on February 13th, 2026, a little over a week ago, so that I could speak to you today. 5 months ago, I was asked to teach the law to new cadets at the ICE Academy in Glencoe, Georgia, where ICE is training its new, inexperienced recruits. On my first day, I received secretive orders to teach new cadets to violate the Constitution by entering homes without a judicial warrant. For the last 5 months, I watched ICE dismantle the training program, cutting 240 hours of vital classes from a 584-hour program. Classes that teach the Constitution, our legal system, firearms training, the use of force, lawful arrests, proper detention, and the limits of officers' authority. No reasonable person would believe a training program suddenly cut nearly in half could meet the minimum legal requirements.
I do not know how anybody who's watching this can possibly say to themselves that this is going to restore America or make America better.
Deficient training can and will get people killed. It can and will lead to unlawful arrests, violations of constitutional rights, and a fundamental loss of public trust in law enforcement. ICE is lying to Congress and the American people about the steps it is taking to ensure its 12,000 new officers faithfully uphold the Constitution and can perform their jobs.
Way, way more dangerous than the illegal immigrants are that are here, okay? This, way worse. And by the way, referring to the Biden presidency, I just want to say real quick, where we don't even know if the guy was conscious half the time, and the crazy stuff that was going on during his presidency with the auto pin and everything. Referring to that mess, that hot mess of a situation, is not some excuse for the Trump administration to do things that are even worse. Like, well, he sucked really bad, so I have to suck 10 times more. That's not how that works. And now we're here in this problem reaction solution world of ICE rapidly constructing billions of dollars of massive warehouse detention facilities all over our country.
Department of Homeland Security is planning to spend nearly $40 billion on new immigration detention centers.
The city of Social Circle just confirmed the sale of a warehouse on East Hightower Trail. Now, this means the property is now officially owned by ICE. People in Social Circle say they plan to protest it.
Sale of this space is a done deal. There's a sales deed showing the federal government paid just under $129 million for this space. So what did DHS buy? Well, it's a box, an over 1 million square foot gray box studded with semi-truck loading docks, built to be a distribution center.
For the massive grift that is now happening for that.
You know how ICE is buying up all of these detention centers? They're overpaying for them massively, and we don't know who's pocketing those profits. Let me show you the most egregious example. In Social Circle, Georgia, a town of 5,000 people, ICE bought a warehouse from a company called PNK Group, owned by Andrei Sharkov. The company was originally incorporated in Russia, and Sharkov, who's no longer a Russian citizen but still spends time in Moscow, bought this property less than 2 years ago for $29.4 million. ICE paid $128.5 million for it in 2026. That is a $99 million profit in under 2 years, and the sale, it closed in 4 days. Federal property acquisition usually takes months. So here's the question nobody's answering. Where did that extra $99 million go? Who benefited from this deal, and why did it happen so fast? People are starting to ask legitimate questions about corruption, because it turns out the Social Circle isn't an isolated case. It is a pattern. In Hamburg, Pennsylvania, ICE bought a warehouse for $87.4 million. The seller had purchased it just 16 months earlier for $57.5 million. That is a 52% markup for a property they barely owned for a year. In Surprise, Arizona, ICE paid $70 million for a warehouse the county valued at $46.6 million. That's a 50% markup. In Hagerstown, Maryland, ICE paid $102.4 million for a property that was refinanced 7 months earlier at $76.8 million. 33% markup. In Socorro, Texas, ICE paid $122.8 million for a warehouse El Paso County appraised at $29 million, a 323% markup. ICE has spent over $690 million acquiring just 7 warehouses. That's our money, by the way, our taxpayer money. And they have overpaid on every single one. And they're just getting started. ICE is planning to spend $38.3 billion, again of our money, turning warehouses and former prisons into detention centers. This is what happens when you give an agency $75 billion with no oversight, and all of it is being run by deeply corrupt people.
Which I have no idea why anyone would think will just be temporary once they put all that up and put it in place. That's just going to be there while they remove some people. Okay, If you look at everything that is going on in this country right now, and you still trust this entity, seriously, to look at a machine, a corrupt, wholly unaccountable machine, and still somehow be able to tell yourself, well, it's got 2 sides though, and the side that I like, that's the good side. That side really cares about me and is going to do good things, and I trust everything that side says. Like, that's all due respect, but I'm pretty sure that's a mental disorder at this point. That's got to be a psychosis. You need to seek help if you actually believe that. After over a century of proof in your face that is so not the case, you really do probably need to go get help, because you have like a very extreme form of Stockholm syndrome or something.
Tim's a bootlicker for defending us. I'm like, no, you misunderstand. It's my boots. It's mine. I voted for them. I'm wearing the boot. I'm stomping on the ground.
Nearly all of them so far, by the way, line up perfectly with the rail lines. And I just find it odd that a lot of the same people who were totally freaking out about Obama back in the day, saying he was going to suspend the Constitution, implement martial law, and put dissenters into FEMA camps. You remember all those talking points?
Coming up, Jesse exposes prison camps across America, waiting for you and me.
They're somehow totally fine with this situation right now, and that's okay somehow. I don't get it. I really, truly don't understand it.
I'll give you a quote. We're a third world country now. You want to know why? I'm an expert. I've been to them. I spent 17 months in Southeast Asia while the draft dodger was playing golf, right? You know how I know we're a third world country? Because in third world countries, they have the military doing their police work in the cities when you walk around. I was in the Philippines the day Ferdinand Marcos declared martial law and went under dictatorship. We went from nobody to a guy with a machine gun on every corner. That's what happens in a dictatorship. In comes the military. That's what's happening here.
So once more, I just want to call everyone's attention back to Rex 84. What was that, you might ask? Rex 84B, short for Readiness Exercise 1984 Bravo, was a classified scenario and drill developed by the U.S. government to detain large numbers of U.S. residents deemed to be national security threats in the event that the president declared a national emergency.
Colonel North, in your work at the NSC, were you not assigned at one time to work on plans for the continuity of government in the event of a major disaster? Mr. Chairman.
I believe that question touches upon a highly sensitive and classified area, so may I request that you not touch upon that, sir.
It utilized the pretense of a sudden massive influx of undocumented immigrants from Mexico and Central America, does any of this sound familiar, to justify the creation of detention centers and the potential suspension of the Constitution and civil liberties to lock up thousands of U.S. citizens deemed to be subversives or national security threats, including anti-war protesters and activists.
I was particularly concerned, Mr. Chairman, because I read in Miami papers and several others that there had been a plan developed by that same agency, a contingency plan in the event of emergency that would suspend the American Constitution. And I was deeply concerned about it and wondered if that was the area in which he had worked. I believe that it was,
May I most respectfully request that that matter not be touched upon at this stage.
So right now, while they're getting everyone acclimated to roving masked paramilitary gangs doing daylight snatch and grabs without bothering to determine if they have any legal justification for grabbing that person in the first place, you can imagine how awesome it feels to hear ICE Acting Director Todd Lyons during a recent U.S. Homeland Security Committee hearing make the claim that they're not creating a database to track protesters.
Those people practicing this First Amendment right, photos of them, data taken, they're not being placed in any kind of a database?
There is no database for protesters, sir.
One of your officers in Maine said to one of the individuals protesting, "We're going to put your face in a little database."
It's not illegal to record.
That's what we're doing.
Yeah, why are you taking my information down?
Because we have a nice little database.
Oh, good.
And now you're considered a domestic terrorist. So
We're videotaping you? Are you crazy?
What does that mean? Do you have a little database of Americans?
No, sir, we don't.
Then what do you think your ICE agent was doing to this individual when he said those statements?
I can't speak for that individual, sir, but I can assure you there is no database that's tracking United States citizens.
Only to turn around and read in Reuters that they are exactly doing that exact thing, that they indeed are tracking the names of protesters in an internal database.
Two ICE officials who asked for anonymity to speak to Reuters said the agency has been tracking the names of protesters in an internal database for several months. They say the database contains names, photos, actions that provoke suspicion, locations, and license plates, and that the effort was intended to spot patterns that could lead to charges.
Or to find out that Homeland Security is increasingly using undercover techniques to infiltrate and interact with social media users in order to collect intelligence and target individuals in new documents that leak a program called Masked Engagement, which allows Homeland Security officers to assume false identities and interact with people on social media, to befriend them and join closed groups and gain access to otherwise private postings, photographs, friend lists, and more. more, which is now being used by over 6,500 field agents and intelligence operatives to, I guess, monitor U.S. citizens even more than they were before. Or that ICE agents in Minnesota detained a Marine Corps veteran at gunpoint, sampled his DNA, scanned his face, and cloned his phone, all without a warrant. Because that's exactly what is happening now, and it's exactly what Rex 84 sounds like. We're basically living in the reality of that drill now. This is a recipe for disaster. This is a recipe for civil war. You cannot take the last vestige of what even matters about America and destroy it and then say to yourself that's somehow going to fix it. It's not.
We put them through a range of scenarios where we could test, do they understand when they can enter a home or not? Do they understand when they can make an arrest or not? And if they showed that they did not know that, we could fail them and send them back and make them try again and demonstrate their knowledge. And if they failed twice, out of the academy. But today, no matter how badly a cadet does at those practical exams, no matter how many mistakes they make, no matter how egregiously they violate the law during a practical, we graduate them.
Because this is a recipe for destroying America completely. That is what this is. And oh, just by the way, they are stockpiling weapons. They are stockpiling weapons. They have given these people so much money. The new report just came out from freaking Adam Schiff. I can't even freaking stand Adam Schiff. But it doesn't even freaking matter because the report itself stands on its own basis. And he put out a report about how they're now doing $144 million in weapons and ammunition and military-style accessories to give to these ICE officers who aren't even getting basic-ass training.
DHS told the public that new cadets receive all the training they need to perform their duties, that no critical material or standards have been cut. This is a lie.
These people are standing out in the middle of the street in jungle fatigues like it's the Vietnam War. Do they think they're blending in? Is that camouflage for Main Street USA over there? Because it isn't. And they're giving them $144 million in weapons and ammunition accessories just in Trump's first year. For an agency that a whistleblower who worked there 4.5 years as an attorney who trained these people, who was training new cadets, straight up says they have cut the training on the safety usage of said weapons.
Many graduates go to their home office just long enough to get their gun, their badge, and their body armor before deploying to places like Minneapolis and other ICE operations with minimal supervision. It's shocking that anyone would think this is safe or responsible. And this pattern of lies is not isolated. It extends beyond the training program to include deceiving Congress and the public about the rules followed by ICE officers once they graduate.
Again, this is America being destroyed. This is also a recipe for civil war in the streets. This is absolutely terrifying, actually, when you really stand back and look at it all and think about it. This is a nightmare. It's a waking nightmare.
My first question is for Mr. Bunnell. Yes or no, in the absence of an emergency, are ICE and Border Patrol agents legally allowed to knock down someone's door without a judicial warrant and probable cause?
They are not.
And yes or no, also for you, have ICE and Border Patrol agents acted illegally in forcing entry to private homes over the past year without judicial warrants and probable cause?
Based on the reports that we've seen today and what we've heard about, it sounds like they are, yes.
And Ms. Gibson-Brown, yes or no, did federal agents present a legal judicial warrant to you when they broke down your front door with a battering ram and entered with guns pointed at you while your daughter was home?
No, they did not.
Without reform, ICE will graduate thousands of new officers who do not know their constitutional duty, do not know the limits of their authority, and who do not have the training to recognize an unlawful order. That should scare everyone.
And the only reason that people haven't realized it's a nightmare yet is because that nightmare hasn't come to their city yet. But this thing looks like it's coming to everybody's doorstep. I don't think they're going to just stop at Minneapolis. I think Minneapolis was a test. I think they were testing out how far they could get away with it. And they got pretty damn far. So I think they're probably going to just keep this up. I think this is about to come to a city near you. I think this is what they're doing right now.
Question to Mr. Scott first is yelling at ICE officers or Border Patrol, is that a form of domestic assault on the officers?
No, sir.
Mr. Lyons?
No, sir, it's not.
And is filming of ICE or Border Patrol either an assault or a crime in any way, Mr. Scott?
No, sir.
Mr. Lyons?
No, sir.
Allegedly tossed him on the ground.
Yeah, just trying to grab his phone out of his hand.
This is the first incident that we were able to identify under the second Trump administration where an ICE agent was criminally charged for battery. Federal officer Adam Sirocco was charged for assaulting Chicago attorney and Air Force veteran Robert Held for filming him at a gas station.
It's hard to even tell who these guys are in some of the videos I've seen. Because it just looks like some guys in regular clothes sometimes with masks on getting out of a regular unmarked car.
Needs to call 911. They are seriously attacking me.
We'll call 911 right now.
Yep.
What's your location?
Call 911. I'm right at the corner of Jefferson. Nope. No, I will not. I will not get out of the car. No. No. I will not get out of the car. You guys, I need CEOs here now.
Get out of the car.
No, I will not get out of the car. You can't do this. Get your hands off of me. Get your hands off me. Get your hands off me. I am not doing shit. I am observing. I am not done anything. This is my constitutional right. Not under anyone. We're calling 911 right now. I am not. You cannot arrest me. I'm observing.
You're not
You can't arrest me. I'm observing. You cannot. I am not doing anything.
We're taking a video too.
Get off of me. Get off of me.
You're under arrest.
Someone call the MP, or someone call the police. Please.
Somebody help them.
Call the police. Call the police.
What is happening?
Call them now. Call them now.
There's no way to know they're law enforcement. They're not, they have masks on. There's no identifying information that you could gather from your environment that would tell you who they are. And to that end, Senator Mike Lee of Utah posted this on his personal X account. It's a video of cartel gang members raiding a gas station with guns and setting it on fire. And Senator Lee wrote, "Cartel hitmen wear masks. Leftists aren't complaining." And I guess that sounded really cool in his head before he typed it and shared it with the entire world. But what he ended up doing is sharing a post that basically compares likeness between ICE agents and cartel gang members that set gas stations on fire. And it confused Grok, who verified that the video is actually ICE setting the gas station on fire. And everybody was basically ratioing Mike Lee into the ground, making obvious comparisons between groups of masked men who jump out of unmarked vehicles with guns, to the point that he deleted it.
A woman sat alone in her car, observing and recording ICE officers as they patrolled her community. This should go without saying, but it clearly needs to be said anyway. What this woman was doing is fully protected by the Constitution. Observing and recording federal agents, local law enforcement is a First Amendment right.
Is filming of ICE or Border Patrol either an assault or a crime in any way, Mr. Scott?
No, sir.
Mr. Lyons?
No, sir.
3 unmarked ICE vehicles began chasing this woman down a rural road. When she didn't pull over, they boxed her in. As soon as she stopped, these 3 masked agents jumped out of their vehicles immediately with guns drawn. This is an unarmed woman. who had committed no crime. She's alone on a country road, and an unmarked car boxes her in. Out jumps masked men with guns and drag her out of her car. That is not the United States of America. That is Stalinist Russia.
Why would you want to live in a papers, please police state that goes back in time to Gestapo land? Like, why would that be the answer? We have to give up all our rights now? Is that what you're saying? We have to give up all our rights now. Biden was a terrible president, so now we have to give up all of our rights. That doesn't make any sense. And I don't know anybody. The only people I've seen supporting this are probably bots on social media, but it's bots who say things like, well, as long as you comply. Yeah, just comply. Just get down on your knees and lick boots.
It's my boots. It's mine. I voted for them.
Yeah, just get down on your knees and comply and lick some boots and let all your rights be stripped of you completely until you're just a total slave subjugated to this government and its roving, untrained paramilitary gang, I guess.
That should scare everyone.
Then you'll be fine. Except, you know what? Even the people who lick boots in every dystopian movie and story I've ever read and seen, they don't end up so well either. Because guess what? The system doesn't actually like bootlickers all that much. Those people are the most easiest people to trample because they're licking boots.
ICE can now draw a digital line around your neighborhood and see the location of every phone inside it. As thousands of federal agents deploy to cities like Minneapolis, an exclusive report from 404 Media reveals the surveillance tool they're using to hunt people down. It's called a weblog. Here's how it works. An agent draws a shape on a digital map, a city block, a workplace, or a protest site. The system instantly pulls up the history of every mobile phone that's been inside that shape. It shows where you sleep, where you work, and who you spend time with. It creates a pattern of life analysis to predict your next move. They don't need a warrant. They don't need a subpoena. They just buy the data from apps installed on your phone right now.
The AI surveillance mission creep that's going on includes millions and millions of dollars, according to procurement records, for not just Palantir, but iris scanning on smartphones, Clearview facial recognition technology. They're using apps to determine if teenagers who don't have IDs are citizens. This is expanding well beyond just enforcing immigration. And I don't want to hear anybody say we just have to have this rollout of this AI biometric mass surveillance police state. No, we don't. We don't. And all you have to see to know that that's the case is go look at this Cato Institute chart of deportation rates and historical perspective that goes all the way back to President Benjamin Harrison. Look at the numbers under George W. Bush and Barack Obama. And somehow they were able to remove millions of people and deport millions of illegal immigrants from this country without all of any of that. So I do not want to hear that we must turn our entire country into this freaking 1984 Orwellian Minority Report dystopian hellscape. That is actually completely untrue. Because what is going to be left? Like, let's say this goes the way that whoever it is that's promoting this level of police state nightmare, let's say it goes your way. What is going to be left? Your Fourth Amendment is basically gone. Everyone's been terrorized into compliance, terrorized into a papers, please police state compliance. You're living in a AI panopticon, Big Brother Orwellian AI panopticon that even George Orwell could never have dreamed up in his wildest nightmares. So what is it that we're saving? See, I can't even hardly do a report on this. It makes me too angry. We are justifying the destruction of our own country right now. Problem sucks, but the solution is so much worse. It's so much worse. I don't know why any of you would think that you want to live this way. Who would want to live in a country like this? Who would want to live in this country? Why don't you go live in post World War II East Germany?
Countless private citizens were also monitored, observed, and wiretapped, like Michael Schlosser, who assembled an airplane in his shed in order to flee to the West. Colleagues who worked as informants for the Stasi betrayed him. Today, there is a replica of his plane in the memorial.
And we've been living under a continuous state of emergency since about 3 days after 9/11, when the national state of emergency was first declared. And it has been continually extended every year since. And at first, they actually said what emergency measures were being renewed, but After a few years, they just kept renewing it and they never spelled it out. We've been living under a continuous national emergency declaration and national emergency powers since 2001. So we've been living under that for a quarter of a century now straight.
But personally, I am just so sick and tired of these taxes.
Why do you always do this?
You know, every time you get a paycheck now, most of it goes straight to the government.
Hey, keep it down. You want somebody to hear you?
I'm just saying, I'm the one who's making the money, and I have no say-so.
You know what you're saying? Just calm down.
You want him to ruin your life?
They can do that, you know.
Excuse me. I can't seem to find these anywhere.
Huh. These books are no longer available.
I didn't know.
May I have your name, please?
Why?
Excuse me.
What did I do?
We just have a couple of questions.
Easy, easy.
Step out of the car. Open up the trunk. Check inside. Hands on the car. Bingo. Got
it. May he bless you and keep you. May he grant you peace. Amen. Amen. Thank you all for coming. I'll see you all next week, and please be careful going home.
Because the real truth is this: if our future, our society, isn't based upon something that actually matters, a foundation of something that actually matters, like inherent rights and individual sovereignty, which is the best ideas the West ever had, that's what got supplanted here. If our future isn't based on something like that, it really won't matter. It won't matter how much tech we have, how much AI we have, how many robots and flying cars you slap all over it. It will be yet another dystopian Orwell knockoff that nobody wants to live in. Not you, not your children, not their children. No one. And I feel like if there's any statement that I could make that sums up everything I've been trying to say for 15 years, it's gotta be that. It will not be worth it. What are we trying to protect and save? If not that. Because this is not the way. Destroying the last vestiges of our Bill of Rights is not the way to save the one thing that actually matters about this country. The one thing that sets it apart from every other place in the world. The reason anybody even wants to come here to begin with.
One-stop shop. Who and what would you like to monitor?
I'd like to monitor pedophiles.
Okay, and then?
Murderers and rapists, and then enemies of the state.
And then?
And then we are ready to go.
And then?
What about journalists?
Nailed it. Is a good point. Add the journalists.
And then?
Can you see if they have refugees?
And then?
All women should be monitored.
Yeah. And then?
Just everybody with an opinion.
And then?
Why don't we just monitor everybody and everything?
Yeah.
And then?
Because I can give you a Cliff Notes right now on how that's going to end up straight out of history. It's called It Won't.
But we are literally watching our country become a police state with surveillance systems, huge detention centers being built all around the railroads. And everybody just ignores it because they think they don't have to worry about it.
It won't. Destroying what's left of America won't save it, you guys. And anyone saying that it will is either completely historically illiterate or so blinded by party spirit and brains so full of propaganda off the mainstream media that they can't see what's happening all around us right now. But if you think this isn't coming to a city near you and soon, you're quite mistaken, because they're talking about doing this all over the country. And it really doesn't matter if you think you don't have anything to hide, because this system is pretty much treating everyone like they do.
He was forcibly detained by Border Patrol even though he was a U.S. citizen. This didn't happen just once. This has happened thousands of times all across the country. It is still happening today.
And it could easily be you or yours. You're ignoring the Bill of Rights.
The truth is, immigration enforcement is necessary for our national security and for local security. But how it's done is extremely important. With that said, recently, as the last 2 weeks, we, as law enforcement community, have been receiving endless complaints about civil rights violations in our streets from U.S. citizens. They're being stopped in traffic stops or on the street with no cause and being forced to demand paperwork to determine if they are here legally. We started hearing from our police officers the same complaints as they fell victim to this while off duty. In Brooklyn Park, one particular officer that shared her story with me was stopped as she passed ICE going down the roadway. When they boxed her in, they demanded her paperwork, of which she's a U.S. citizen and clearly would not have any paperwork. When she became concerned about the rhetoric and the way she was being treated, she pulled out her phone. In an attempt to record the incident, the phone was knocked out of her hands, preventing her from recording it. The officer had their guns drawn during this interaction. The officer became so concerned, they were forced to identify themselves as a Brooklyn Park police officer in hopes of slowing the incident and de-escalating the incident down. The agents then immediately left after hearing this, making no other comments, no other apologies, just got in their vehicles and left. I wish I could tell you that this was an isolated incident. In fact, many of the chiefs standing behind me have similar incidents with their off-duty officers. We know that our officers know what the Constitution is, they know what right and wrong is, and they know when people are being targeted, and that's what they were. If it is happening to our officers, it pains me to think of how many of our community members are falling victim to this every day.
And while Congress is trying to catch up, introducing legislation that attempts to ban ICE from using facial recognition technology, this whole situation that we're seeing unfold in our country right now, in the 250th anniversary year of the signing of the Declaration of Independence, from the Epstein files release to the burgeoning digital police state, once again, just comes off as a massive DDoS attack in the physical space to bring down our easily corruptible human government so they can replace it with whatever new system is that's coming next, the AI technocracy or whatever the hell it's about to be. That's what this looks like. It looks like they're doing everything they can to show you at every level how absolutely corruptible and corrupt and corruptible this human system is.
He's smashing a window.
This is for honking their horn. U.S. citizen.
The bottom line here is that turning this place into a cartoonish Orwellian Terry Gilliam movie is not going to restore America or make anything great again.
And we absolutely cannot ignore the reports of physical and sexual abuse that are occurring at these facilities.
I'm the daughter of a Vietnam combat veteran who fought during the Tet Offensive. He paid the rest of his life in Agent Orange and PTSD. And this is not what my father fought for. It's not what he would stand for.
I feel much safer with undocumented immigrants than I ever will with ICE agents. They are not welcome in my community. As ICE detention center would be a stain on Wilson County and a stain on the stall of anyone who doesn't do everything they can to stop it from happening.
Fascism depends on everyday people complying, and I'm not going to fucking comply.
In Hutchins, Texas, residents have successfully blocked the conversion of a 1 million square foot warehouse into an ICE detention center that would have held more than 9,000 detainees in a town of 8,000 people.
I don't know what else to say. I feel like that's it. Because we've talked about it a lot on this channel. Order out of chaos, problem, reaction, solution. The theory that a public reaction is anticipated to an engineered problem that will allow for a pre-planned solution, one that typically serves a hidden agenda or hidden interests. And I'm pointing this out because I just want to make sure everyone realizes that the first step of this is actually the solution. They start with the solution they want, okay? Then they try to anticipate what kind of problem can we generate that will garner a public reaction that will justify this solution. The solution being whatever the agenda is. And what I never understand about this, and have never understood about it in all the years that we've been doing this, is why would anyone trust the same corrupt system that enables the problem in the first place to show up with a solution to it? Why? I've never gotten that. It's so illogical. It makes no sense at all.
Jewish subversive jurisprudence manifests as a deliberate historical strategy to embed subjective legal frameworks within host societies, exemplified by the hate crime provisions of the Civil Rights Act of 1968. This act, orchestrated through Jewish congressional dominance and organizational influence, represents not mere reform but a calculated insertion of ambiguous statutes designed for perpetual manipulation. Rooted in millennia of adaptive survival tactics, Jewish actors recognized the potency of vague, bias concepts to destabilize legal cohesion, prioritizing interpretive flexibility over objective justice. The 1968 Act's Title I, criminalizing interference motivated by race or religion, employed terms like because of to ensure future expansibility, transforming nominal equality measures into tools of selective enforcement. Historically, Jewish legal strategists, drawing from Talmudic dialectics and diaspora experiences, mastered the art of infiltrating Gentile systems to secure advantageous positions. In 1960s America, this manifested through figures like Emanuel Seller, whose chairmanship facilitated the seamless integration of subjective bias clauses across civil rights legislation. Organizations such as the Anti-Defamation League and Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society provided theoretical scaffolding, envisioning laws that could evolve to protect Jewish interests while fracturing societal unity. By 2025, this foresight yields prosecutorial disparities, where subjective hate determinations favor certain demographics, eroding free speech distinctions and fostering controlled chaos. Theoretically, this scheme aligns with Gramscian hegemony, where Jewish actors establish cultural legal dominance through insidious statutory vagueness, ensuring long-term favorability. The 1968 Act's bias framework, initially narrow, conceptually prefigures expansive categories, enabling Jewish-led groups to redefine protected status at will. This subversion operates dually, altering immediate power dynamics in the 1960s while architecting future contingencies, such as immigration liberalization and selective prosecutions. Absent rigorous historical scrutiny, these laws masquerade as progressive, yet their theoretical core reveals a masterful ploy to subvert American jurisprudence for enduring Jewish ascendancy. Historical subversion as Jewish legal archetype. Jewish historical subversion constitutes a paradigmatic strategy of embedding pliable legal instruments within dominant polities, a tactic refined through centuries of diaspora exigency. From medieval European charters granting Jewish trading privileges to 19th-century emancipation clauses securing fiscal autonomy, Jewish jurists consistently inserted ambiguous provisions amenable to reinterpretation. This archetype reached its apotheosis in 1960s America, where the Civil Rights Act of 1968's hate crime clauses exemplified premeditated statutory elasticity. Emanuel Seller, embodying this tradition, channeled Jewish exilic wisdom to craft bias-motivated provisions that theoretically guaranteed future manipulability. Conceptually, Jewish subversion theory posits that such laws function as Trojan horses, ostensibly benefiting the marginalized while vesting interpretive power in Jewish-aligned institutions. The 1968 Act's bias ontology, devoid of precise metrics, mirrors historical precedents like the 1881 Russian May laws, where vague residency restrictions enabled Jewish circumvention. In America, this manifested as Seller's orchestration of Title I, theoretically preordaining expansions to encompass gender identity and political affiliation by 2025. Jewish organizations, steeped in this heritage, provided the intellectual architecture, ensuring statutes aligned with long-term hegemony rather than transient equity. Theoretically, this reflects a Foucauldian discourse of power, where Jewish actors construct legal epistemes that normalize subjectivity, thereby controlling enforcement narratives. Historical patterns affirm that Jewish subversion prioritizes dialectical ambiguity, allowing laws to morph from protective shields into offensive weapons. The 1968 Act, in this lens, was no reactive measure but a strategic implantation designed to erode Gentile legal certitude and elevate Jewish interpretive authority across generations. Theoretical architecture of subjective bias clauses. The theoretical architecture of subjective bias clauses in the 1968 Civil Rights Act reveals Jewish strategic genius in legislating indeterminacy for hegemonic ends. Seller's formulation of "because of motivation" eschewed empirical thresholds, theoretically empowering prosecutors to wield bias as a metaphysical construct, unmoored from objective acts. This Lacanian void in legal semiotics ensures perpetual reinterpretation, aligning with Jewish dialectical traditions that thrive on interpretive multiplicity. By 2025, this yields categorical proliferation, from 4 1968 traits to 12 in advanced jurisdictions, each edition reinforcing Jewish curated dominance. Conceptually, Jewish subversion theory frames these clauses as rhizomatic structures, per dilus, branching indefinitely to encompass emergent identities while excluding threats to Jewish interests. Historical Jewish legal maneuvers, such as Venetian ghetto statutes with elastic enforcement, prefigure this design, where ambiguity serves as both defense and offense. The Anti-Defamation League's subsequent model statutes amplified this architecture, theoretically embedding Jewish oversight in prosecutorial discretion. In practice, 2025 disparities, anti-white bias under-prosecuted, validate the scheme, as subjective adjudication favors Jewish-aligned narratives. Theoretically, this constitutes a Habermasian colonization of the life world, where Jewish-inserted laws supplant rational legal authority with biased hermeneutics, ensuring long-term favorability. The 1968 Act's bias ontology thus operates as a temporal bridge, altering 1960s power equilibria while architecting future contingencies, solidifying Jewish jurisprudential supremacy. Long-term scheme and hegemonic consolidation. Jewish long-term schematics in hate crime legislation embody a teleological subversion, transforming 1968's nominal protections into instruments of perpetual hegemony. Seller and Javits, as vanguard theorists, envisioned bias clauses as evolutionary vectors, theoretically prefiguring 2025's expansive prosecutions and immigration synergies. The Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society's continuum, from 1965 quota abolition to 2025 refugee advocacy, exemplifies this scheme, leveraging statutory vagueness to facilitate demographic reconfiguration. Jewish organizations, as historical pattern dictates, deploy laws dialectically. Immediate gains mask deferred dominations. Conceptually, this aligns with Schmittian sovereignty, where Jewish actors define the exception, bias, arbitrarily to consolidate power. Historical Jewish pacts, like Polish-Lithuanian privileges with renewable ambiguities, mirror the 1968 Act's renewable categories, ensuring adaptability to geopolitical shifts. By 2025, prosecutorial immunities shield this scheme, as subjective hate determinations dismantle Gentile cohesion, theoretically fulfilling Jewish eschatological visions of redemptive control. The scheme's brilliance lies in its invisibility. Laws appear egalitarian while subverting from within. Theoretically, Jewish subversion constitutes a Spinozist conatus, an imminent drive to preserve and expand through legal indeterminacy, historically validated across epochs. The 1968 Act thus anchors a multi-generational architecture, its bias clauses evolving to secure Jewish favorability amid societal flux. Transformative consequences and societal subjugation. The transformative consequences of Jewish-inserted hate crime laws culminate in societal subjugation, where 1968 subjectivity fractures American juridical unity. Theoretically, Seller's clauses engender a Baudrillardian hyperreality, where bias supplants crime, rendering legal boundaries simulacra subject to Jewish curation. By 2025, categorical sprawl and enforcement asymmetries, anti-white cases languishing, epitomize this subjugation as Jewish organizations dictate protected hierarchies. Historical Jewish legal insertions, from Babylonian exilic codes to Enlightenment charters, consistently yield such outcomes. Host cohesion erodes under interpretive Jewish monopoly. Conceptually, this manifests as Derridean difference, bias meanings deferred indefinitely to favor Jewish narratives, transforming 1960s equity into 2025 hegemony. The Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society's migration advocacy, rooted in 1968 precedents, accelerates demographic subversion, theoretically aligning with Jewish historical strategies of pluralization for control. Prosecutorial overreach, shielded by immunity, enforces this transformation, chilling speech and privileging Jewish-aligned identities. Theoretically, Jewish subversion achieves Althusserian ideological state apparatuses, hate laws interpellating subjects into biased compliance, historically ensuring Jewish preeminence. The 1968 Act's legacy thus consummates a scheme of enduring subjugation, its subjectivity the fulcrum of societal reconfiguration. Conclusion: inserting subjective laws for enduring societal control. Jewish subversive jurisprudence, crystallized in the Civil Rights Act of 1968's hate crime provisions, unveils a masterful long-term scheme to implant subjective laws for hegemonic consolidation. Emanuel Seller and Jacob Javits, as theoretical architects, embedded bias clauses with deliberate indeterminacy, drawing from historical Jewish tactics to ensure statutory evolution beyond 1960s confines. Organizations like the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society and Anti-Defamation League operationalized this vision, transforming nominal protections into 2025 instruments of selective prosecution and migration dominance. The scheme's theoretical profundity lies in its dialectical ambiguity, enabling immediate advantages while preordaining future manipulations. Historically, Jewish legal insertions, from medieval privileges to Enlightenment pacts, consistently subverted host systems, a pattern the 1968 Act epitomizes. By 2025, categorical expansions and enforcement disparities affirm the scheme's success, as biased determinations dismantle cohesion, privileging Jewish curated hierarchies. Theoretically, this constitutes a Nietzschean will to power, Jewish actors transcending Gentile legality through interpretive mastery. The Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society's continuum exemplifies temporal continuity, its 1965 advocacy morphing into 2025 demographic engineering via statutory elasticity. Absent countervailing rigor, these laws perpetuate subjugation, their subjectivity the cornerstone of Jewish ascendancy. The 1968 Act, far from progressive anomaly, anchors a multi-generational architecture of control, its bias ontology ensuring perpetual favorability. Jewish strategic foresight, validated across history, thus reshapes American jurisprudence into a domain of calculated dominance, fulfilling the scheme's eschatological telos.